Welcome to 99th Monkey Liberty News for Tuesday, February 19th, 2014. I am beginning today with an article from WorldNet Daily. Google accuses WorldNet Daily of hate speech, and Google is threatening to shut down the ads on the WorldNet Daily website because they have used the term, quote, black mobs, end quote, in news stories and columns reporting on a 2-year epidemic of racial attacks in the U.S. And so WorldNet Daily is blocking Google ads in content in which that phrase appears in past and current stories, including this one. Other ad providers have agreed to step in and fill the gap. I'm addressing this partly because I am a little disappointed that alternative news sites continue to host Google ads. They are not our friends. Much of the information that we talk about in alternative liberty news is about things that Google is behind. I mean, they support much of the tyranny. Let's face it, they're in league with the NSA. And why do we keep putting their ads on our websites? Now, if somebody, Max Kaiser or some great entrepreneur really wants to put something great together, they ought to put together an alternative to Google for ads on alternative news websites, because this just, when I see Google ads on people's pages, or ads that I believe are probably Google, I intentionally divert my eyes because I am not and I virtually never click. Google is famous for the whole pay-per-click thing. It's not real. They doctor it. There in the past, I don't know if this still goes on, but there have been prisoners in Chinese prisons who were paid to click ads to rack up more sales of ad space. Now, I'm a bit of a hypocrite because I do use YouTube, but I started to use YouTube before it was purchased by Google, and I have not really found a great alternative. As soon as there is one, I will switch over. And I have another interesting article about Google from RT. Google investing more than $1 billion in alternative energy. And, I wasn't sure what to think about this headline until I saw the article. I was thinking that, maybe they wanted to diverge their investments and have, something going in the background in case their NSA ties were to get shut down and they would need other sources of income. Well, no, that's not it. This alternative energy that they're developing and investing in is virtually all to support their operations. So what's going on here actually is, I think, a preemptive move. They have recognized this trend of states to shut down utilities serving the NSA. If something is politically unpopular, the state can shut down utilities for an entity. And so Google's going off the grid here. I mean, it's usually the alternative people who are trying to go off grid and be independent so that the machine can't shut us down. But here's part of the machine going off grid, in effect, so that we can't shut them down. So this is an interesting kind of a battle developing. This struggle to be energy independent, and of course then also with that water independent, food independent, and of course let them be isolated here, right? I mean, if they're off grid, we can eventually just find replacements for their services and get away from them. From Infowars.com is a pretty in-depth article, The North Korea Distraction. And this article is, the subtitle here, Kim Jong-un's crimes pale in comparison to those of the big boys. This is just an illustration of the hypocrisy that we're all aware of the elite going after guys who are much lesser criminals than they are. And it's a distraction. It's to make people feel secure, as if, you know, the evil in the world is being addressed. Well, it isn't, at least not by the United Nations for the most part, not by the establishment, certainly not by the U.S. government by and large. Here from a website called Media Roots is an article. This is not a new article, but I just saw the tweet yesterday. BP's PR machine and toxic enterprise of criminal negligence. The BP Deepwater Horizon oil spill dumped 172 million gallons of crude oil into the Gulf of Mexico and caused a holocaust of sea creatures. As a result, tens of thousands of Gulf residents are now suffering, both emotionally due to a loss of livelihood and physically due to contamination. And earlier this month, Gulf victims won a major battle against BP concerning the access to compensation funds. For over a year, the oil company had claimed that the settlement process was unfair because individuals had suffered no harm were allegedly scamming the company out of billions of dollars. Thankfully, the Fifth Circuit Court rejected the corporation's appeal, but BP's moral bankruptcy goes far beyond blocking compensation payouts. And this is one of the great tragedies, and I've mentioned this as, possibly having been planned on some level in order to drive people away from the areas that the UN wants to, quote, rewild, end quote, according to the rewilding maps that are related to Agenda 21, to get people out of natural areas and packed into cities where every move can be monitored and every aspect of life can be controlled. This is just a great tragedy, one of the great tragedies that we have been confronted with in this nation, as far as toxins being released and affronts to our natural resources. Here from CNN Money is just kind of an interesting, another issue having to do with corporations, how iTunes crushed music sales. And I'm not necessarily saying this is negative, but I think it's really noteworthy to see, how many more sales of music have been achieved by iTunes. And this does relate to a loss of control. In the past, you purchased the hard media that contained the music, and it was yours. And yeah, it might get scratched or lost or broken, or your car player might eat your cassette tape, but they were in your possession. And the real issue for me with this is people who allow all this stuff to be stored on the cloud. If there were to be some loss of power, some loss of internet, whatever, you would not have access to that music anymore. Of course, there's the whole issue of copyright and ownership and all that becomes even more muddied with these digital music sales. I have a couple articles about banks. This one is from Zero Hedge. Money launderer until proven innocent. Italy imposes 20% tax withholding on all inbound money transfers. That means they're assuming that your money in Italy, that your money needs to be taxed without even knowing what it is. This is the implication here is, I could see this developing into, You get some gifts at Christmas time. People give you cash or cash for a wedding. You get married. People, give you an envelope with cash. You take your money to the bank and they impose a withholding tax on it. From Blacklisted News, another article pertaining to banking, Capital One says it can show up at cardholders' homes and workplaces. If you sign up for a credit card with Capital One, you sign a contract, and this is even a contract update that makes it clear Capital One agents can drop by any time they please. And this is the update specifies we may contact you in any manner we choose. That such contacts can include calls, emails, texts, faxes, or a personal visit. As if that weren't creepy enough, Cap One says these visits can be at your home and at your place of employment. So yeah, how would you like to have a loan collection person show up at your place of employment? This is just, more argument here for using cash, not even having credit cards, maybe not even caring about your credit rating. Just let this stuff go. We all start to use cash. We do cash transactions. If the cash is out of the banks, that it accomplishes two things. First of all, they don't have control over you. They can't spy on you based on what you do with your finances. And second of all, it weakens banks because even, as low as their requirements are, there is a minimum requirement that they're supposed to have of cash on hand, at least on paper. If the cash is in your hand, then it is not on hand on the bank's balance sheets. So, how do you really impact the banks? Stop using them as much as possible. I realize that's not entirely practical and kind of difficult, but it can be done. Here from Natural News, Thermograms, a safe, accurate, and reliable alternative to mammograms. And I actually was in a little seminar once where a lady spoke who does thermography. And it's probably done in different fashions in different places. She was not an MD, she was a PhD. When she gives women thermograms, if they have something that looks suspicious, she doesn't immediately refer them for a biopsy. She will suggest some diet changes and some other health promotional practices to them and have them, especially, the big thing is no sugar, no flour. And she will have them return after a certain period of time and see what's going on. And she said that many times the issue that is showing up on the thermogram goes away with this kind of alteration of the diet. So they don't even need to be referred for treatment, which is tremendous. So just something to think about. One little thing you can do to perhaps improve your life to some extent. From We Are Change is this article, State Passes Law to Legalize Shooting Police. Wow, that is pretty astonishing. Finally, some rational legislation is passed concerning public servants unlawfully entering another person's property. Indiana has taken action to recognize the unique character of a citizen's home and to ensure that a citizen feels secure in his or her own home against unlawful intrusion by another individual or a public servant. So that is pretty unique. There is some acknowledgement of historical beliefs about liberty in this nation, and that's tremendous. And the historical foundation for that kind of effort is found in the Bill of Rights. And I have this video from Mark Dice, and I have not shown his videos of him going out and humiliating people, getting them to sign stupid petitions, because I haven't seen a whole lot of point in it other than, you know, creating publicity. And of course, you know, anything that gets attention for the liberty movement is probably good. Well, not anything, obviously. And to me, humiliating people like this did not seem like a good idea. But he has changed his tack to some extent. And in this video, he was, you know, making suggestions to people of how they could change, not just humiliating them, but helping them to understand that, you know, they could benefit by knowing some of these things about which they are currently ignorant. So he actually, Mark Dice at 2:44, 2 minutes 44 seconds into this, lists the Bill of Rights for one of the students who's actually interested. And just hearing the Bill of Rights spoken out like this, it triggered some thoughts in my mind. And things that I, of course, was aware of, but hearing them just in this specific manner. For instance, the Fifth Amendment, that you don't have to incriminate yourself. Because the IRS sometimes will criminally prosecute someone, to some extent, filling out information, voluntarily giving information to the IRS is incriminating yourself. It's a breach of the Fifth Amendment. You do not have to incriminate yourself. And certainly when, you know, government agencies have forms they want you to fill out, if you could be criminally prosecuted based on your answers in those forms, according to the Fifth Amendment, you do not have to fill those forms out. It's a breach of the Fifth Amendment to require you to do so. And a couple of the other ones, the Sixth and Seventh Amendment, have to do with speedy trial, trial by jury, and I think it's the Eighth that has to do with no unreasonable bail and no torture. And, you know, the Sixth, Seventh, and Eighth Amendments were all breached in how Ian Garland was treated when, you know, this is Fast and Furious Justice Now, and the story of what happened to Ian Garland when he was arrested. And what happened to him is not an exception. We have political prisoners in this country. Whistleblowers and others are just, their Bill of Rights are completely ignored. And of course the NDAA, I really cannot comprehend how the Supreme Court can tolerate the NDAA. It is a breach of at least 3 and possibly 4 of the amendments which are part of the Bill of Rights. So we really have been duped in this country. Our rights have been extremely maligned, and we have been denied rights that are definitely clearly guaranteed us in the Constitution than the Bill of Rights. So let's get some good news after that, right? From Natural News, French senator introduces draft law to ban all GM maize cultivation. That is great news. I hope that he succeeds and that they do ban all GM cultivation in France, and that the rest of us get a clue and ban it in our countries as well. Here from nullifynsa.com, Oregon bill would stop the use of electronic data collection without a warrant. So progress is being made. Go Oregon. Also from the 10th Amendment Center, Washington State House votes to nullify federal hemp ban 97-0. That's great because with Fukushima radiation washing into Washington State, they are going to need to grow some hemp to get rid of the radiation in their soil. As that article I had yesterday stated, hemp detoxifies soil and gets rid of radioactive components of soil. So how great is that? God protects us, and there's a Bible verse that says that there are trees that have fruit for food and leaves for healing. So it's remarkable and wonderful that we have these plants that can do so much good for us in this time when we need them, and we need them to be legal so that we can receive the benefits of them. With that, thank you for tuning in for today's 99th Monkey Liberty News. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Hoping that you will love one another, take care, and insist on liberty.